Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And here with us today is the founder and chief executive of the Johnson Leadership Group LLC, the one and only Kevin Wayne Johnson. He provides organizations and those working within them with the tools to forge adequate personnel and interpersonal communication. He delivers training on dynamic relationships to equip leaders and teams with the attitudes and attributes needed to develop individuals into leaders. He's a former chief of staff of the United States Department of Defense, an 8-time best-selling author, including his book, Leadership with a Servant's Heart, Leading in Your Workplace. And he's here with us today, Mr. Kevin Wayne Johnson. So excited to have you here. I want to jump in and just kind of lay a foundation for this episode with just kind of define for us, what is servant leadership? Because I think you say servant leadership, and about 1,000 people come up with about 1,000 different directions with that or definitions for it. So how do you define servant leadership?
All right, Scott. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on board and to share. It's actually a term that was started here in America way back in 1970. And the message that I send to everybody, especially leaders, aspiring leaders and seasoned leaders, and everybody in between, is that leadership is serving. Leaders serve the people that we are entrusted to lead. It is a privilege and it's an honor to lead people because everyone is looking for someone as an example and a role model. So I don't necessarily separate the term. Quite frankly, it's one word to me because that's what leaders do. We serve people. I come at it from the perspective of putting an emphasis on both the intellectual as well as the emotional. Intellectually, the mind, that's where the acumen, the intelligence, and that's where the subject matter expertise resides. And when a leader shows up, people, for the most part, expect that that man and that woman bring that intellect and that subject matter expertise, unless we prove them wrong when we open our mouths and we demonstrate we don't really know what we're talking about. That's the exception and not the norm. But the heart, Scott, is all about the value, the care, the respect, honor of the people that we are entrusted to lead. And embedded in that from the heart is also the empathy and the compassion that's also demonstrated because everybody is dealing with some type of an issue, both personally and professionally. So for me, as an author, as a speaker, as a leadership trainer, as a coach and a mentor, the two words go hand in hand. It could literally be just one word. Servant leader, leading with a servant's heart, because when the heart is aligned with the mind, now we're well on our way to being outstanding leaders for individuals, for teams, and for entire organizations.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One of the things that I've found is kind of an essential ingredient of that is humility. But it can be mistaken for weakness, right? At some point. And what's the difference between true humility, right, and the weakness that we might mistake it for?
Yeah, great question as well. It kind of ties into a leader who's kind. Demonstrating kindness can also be mistaken as a weakness. Humility is really nothing more than recognizing and acknowledging that it's a privilege, it's an honor to be in this position, to have earned the trust of the organization to help to develop people, identify training opportunities, giving them resources, tools, and systems to be successful. And that requires that we, as the leader, recognize and acknowledge that the development of the people around us is what's at stake. That's what's important and that's the priority. So we humble ourselves as a part of that journey. We're looking at their potential to say, I recommend leadership 101. I recommend leading in a crisis. I recommend presentation skills. I recommend this leadership development program. I suggest that you go to this particular organization for a 90-day developmental assignment. And it makes a huge, huge difference because you do have to humble yourself in order to be laser focused on the needs of other people. And that is the big difference.
I couldn't agree more. And love that distinction. So you're 8-time best-selling author, and I want to run a book by you. I think would be the least selling book of all time, right? The book would be called Submission, because I don't think anyone, automatically wants to submit, right? There's something in us that pushes against that. But my belief is that there is no leadership without submission. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to be submitted to the cause. You have to be submitted to the mission and vision of the organization. You have to be submitted to what's going on in terms of the culture, the morale, paying close attention to the team, the dynamics of the team, what stage of the team they might be in. The old proverbial concept around forming and then storming and then norming before you can perform and then adjourn. And so you have to be laser focused and be submitted to the process. That requires the humility, but that also is one of the many, many unique attributes and characteristics of being a leader, because when we step into these roles and we're entrusted by these organizations and these people to lead, we have to recognize that it's no longer about us. And that's not easy. That's not easy. We've developed ourselves to the point where we're now entrusted to lead others, but now that's our charge. We have to make that transition, that switch to say, I need to take care of these people because they don't know what they don't know. And everyone has blind spots. They can't see their own potential. They may not have the confidence necessary. They may need some help with their briefing skills, how they converse both in writing and verbally. And that's what we're there to help them to do. So you have to be submitted and you do have to be humble. I didn't say it was easy, but these are some things that we have to consider as we make that transition into leadership position. And what's so unique, Scott, about the work role is when we do well, it's a choice. We choose that we are going to step into these roles and be the best leader that we can be. But there's also a population of others who make a choice to say, yeah, I'm in a leadership position. I'm in control. I'll do what I want to do. And that's that emphasis on leading with a servant's heart. If we can align what's in the heart, the emotion, with what's in the mind, the acumen, subject matter expertise, we are well on our way, I believe, to creating some really, really great organizations with great morale, great culture, and the retention rates would go way, way, way up and not down.
Couldn't agree more. One of the things that I loved about your book was part 2, kind of just as a whole. And I'm wondering if we could take just kind of at best a cursory look at this, but to help folks know what they'd be getting their hands on if they got a copy of the book. What I loved about it was you break down that section of the book to kind of the different needs of different leaders and kind of levels within the organization. And I'm wondering if we could just unpack that quickly. Talk to us, what do frontline leaders need most?
Oh, a frontline leader, I equate to someone who is just stepping into the role.
Right.
Or has maybe been there probably 1 to 3 years or less. And it's a transition time because prior to moving into a leadership role, it was all about me.
Right.
I need to go to this training class. I need to have this mentor. I need to have this person coaching me, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's kind of challenging to make that switch where it's no longer about the leader. It's now about the people that you have to take care of, the performance that you have to appraise and give people feedback and make sure that they're on the right track. So a frontline leader is right around that 1 to 3 years. They're figuring it out. what do I need to do? What does it take for me to be successful? How do I take care of these people and at the same time align with the mission and vision of the organization? And also be very, very attentive to my boss who has demands on me in terms of my role. And so what they really need, the frontline leader, what they really need is support and understanding. So if you happen to be a leader and you have someone on your team who is a supervisor, a manager, is entrusted to help to develop other people, we really have to be understanding in terms of helping them,
Right.
as opposed to leaving them to their own devices, because they're learning. While they're learning to be the leader, they're also responsible for other people. And so we have to be sensitive to that. So they have very unique needs. And guess what? They need the introduction to supervision, introduction to leadership. How do you handle difficult people? These are unique challenges that we have to deal with. How do you canvas all of the different personalities and have them to gel on one team? And so that's what I think of. And that's why we took the time to really focus in on it, unpack it, and to help everyone across the organization recognize that while they might be in the role, there's some unique needs that they have.
Yeah, it's so true. It sets up something that I call the star player paradox. And basically it's kind of this move from star player to captain on the field, right? And what I've found is that the more effective you are, the greater you are as a star player, the harder it is to become an effective captain, but the more effective you'll become if you can make the leap.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I love this. It's just the tension of all of that. And I think it's so powerful. That support and understanding is so important, because folks who've made it to the other side, it's easy to forget how hard that is, right? It's easy to forget how big a transition that is. So I love that. Just positioning as, hey, this is a transition time, and these are the things that folks need in that space. I love that. Let's take a step up. We've got our kind of frontline leader. They're doing great. They're moving up the ranks in the organization. They're now a mid-level leader. What do you find that they need most?
So mid-level leaders are the most unique group, because they've been doing it for a while. They've been leading people. They have had the opportunity to give feedback, evaluate performance, and all of those responsibilities that come with it, leading projects, tasks, initiatives, standing up and giving presentations before 500 people, getting the call from their boss 15 minutes before briefing time because the boss got called away to another meeting, dealing with personalities, conflict management. They've been in the game now for probably somewhere between 7 to 15 years. And what's unique about mid-level leader is that some of them find it interesting and enjoy what they do and aspire to continue to do it at the next level, while there are many, many others that are saying, okay, that's enough. I don't want to lead people anymore. I don't want to be a supervisor anymore. It's too stressful, too much going on. I need to live my own life. I'm done. So you have that mix. They're what I call straddling the fence, right?
Yeah.
It can go either way. You just don't know. And so their needs have really a lot to do with taking an assessment and doing an evaluation on how are things going? How are things working well? Do you have aspirations for the next level? How can I support whatever your decision might be? And these are the leaders that we want to make sure we don't take for granted.
Yes.
Because they've been doing it for a while, we kind of tend to take them for granted. But you still have to check in periodically, very informally, just ask them how they're doing, how things are going, how can I help? Remind them that they're doing a good job, and just don't take them for granted. It's not an easy job for many people. And so some will stay because they aspire to go to the next level. Some will straddle the fence and say, okay, I'm good. Then assign me to a project where I can work independently. I've had enough.
Yes. One of the things I think is fascinating about mid-level leaders is I'm becoming increasingly convinced that they are the culture bearers of the organization. And when we overlook them, when we don't look after their needs, when we don't give them that type of, feedback and make sure we know that where they want to go and we're helping them to that, it can eat away at the culture. Even if you have the right things on the wall, even if you do the big events, if you don't take care of your mid-level managers, that culture is going to erode. Do you agree?
Yep, absolutely. You got to take care of them. And your point, you're on point there, Scott. But this is across the board. The frontline leaders as well, because many of them, they're kind of stepping into this thing for the very first time, and they may be thinking, they may not say it, but they may be thinking, I don't think I necessarily want to go to the next level. But the mid-level folks, yes, definitely staying in touch, making sure that they know that we give a care and that we value what they bring into the organization. And I totally agree, because that's where a lot of our leaders reside at that mid-level. So you're absolutely right.
So we're now set up for what I found is quite an interesting tension, because there's this idea when it comes especially to senior level management that we kind of get the Steve Jobs, we hire great people and then we stay out of their way. But then earlier you talked about developing your team and pouring into them being your primary responsibility, particularly for the world that I'm from, founders, entrepreneurs who've built executive teams. That can be really intimidating. Right? It's like, what am I going to teach these people? They're every bit as good at this as I am. What support, what feedback, what type of needs do your senior level leaders require from the CEO or founder?
Well, there's really three things. The first thing that comes to my mind is always be in a position where you can take the pulse of the organization. Which way is the organization going based upon which way the wind is blowing that day? As you know, in America, things change rapidly, whether it's technology, whether it's political, the economy, what's happening today in social media that's getting all of the eyeballs that has us talking, what the news is reporting. So things change, and it's important for a senior level leader really to take the pulse of the organization. The first thing. So secondly, how do you do it? Well, you have to have conversations with folks and just kind of reach out and touch. Now, I'm not necessarily a big proponent of surveys per se, because most organizations don't use them effectively. But if you happen to be in an organization where surveys have worked for you, because there's an action plan executable and implemented based on feedback from the teams, then that's always a good way to kind of see and hear what people are feeling. And when you follow up with an action plan and they actually see that you do something, people feel empowered and people feel appreciated. So that's a second way. Number one is just kind of take the pulse of the organization using your own style and your own method. And number two, if surveys work for your organization, go ahead and take the pulse of the organization based on that feedback from the survey, because people have time to think about their response, record their response, and then submit. But equally important, number three, for senior leaders, great relationships outside of the organization. Stakeholders, customers, your representatives, your senators, your county executive, your city mayor, other businesses, other entrepreneurs, other CEOs, C-suite executives, maintaining and sustaining those great relationships outside of your organization. If senior leaders do those, and they do those well, or even relatively well, that they are fulfilling their responsibility, because the senior leader really is the person that's kind of overseeing at the 50,000-foot level exactly what's going on and keeping that big old cruiser on the right track and not steering too far to the left or the right, because if it gets off track, it's going to be really, really hard to bring it back.
So true. So true.
Yep.
So Kevin, there's a question that I have. I ask all my guests, and I'm going to fire it your way here.
Good.
What would you say is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
I wish more people, especially in the context of the conversation that we're having, I wish more people would take the time to just talk. It's not a secret, but we kind of treat it as a secret because I don't think in America we talk to each other enough.
Yeah.
And talking to one another brings understanding. And from the understanding, now we know that we can have a relationship. And from the relationship, we build trust. But it's all a process. We won't trust each other until we first develop a relationship. We won't have a relationship with each other until first there's some understanding, and we won't get the understanding. We never talk.
Mm.
So it's I wish it weren't a secret, but it seems to be because we don't do enough of it.
Yeah.
I tell organizations all the time, Scott, I tell leaders within those organizations, strike up an informal conversation with somebody else there at the company that you haven't spoken with before. Just very informal. You're not trying to get into the business. You're not being nosy. But the best way to forge good working relationships with others is just to take the first step and just ask them how they're doing, how things are going. And you'll be pleasantly surprised at how the conversation would go. And then make sure you listen.
Yes.
Make sure you listen.
Yes. So good. Kevin, there's some folks listening to this, and they've just loved every minute of it. They want more. Where can they find it? Where can they find a copy of your book, and where can they learn more about the work that you do?
Well, the good news is, as an author for 21 years now, all you have to do is just go to any bookstore or go to Amazon and put in the title, Leadership with a Servant's Heart, and it's available everywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, Goodreads, etc. And as you mentioned earlier, the name of my company is the Johnson Leadership Group. So the website is www.thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com. And there you can find all of the information that we are actively involved with. You'll see my team. You'll see a number of the clients that we work with or have worked with. Our calendar is there for the different events that are going on. And we do offer you, if you like, if you sign up for it, a complimentary 20-minute executive coaching session. Just go to the contact page and sign up if you're interested in doing that. So that's how people can reach out and touch. We make it a priority to make sure we get back within 48 hours. That's a company policy that I initiated many years ago. It's an extension of customer service. Something else that we need to work on in America. That's another topic for another show.
Well, Kevin, thanks so much for being here again. The Leadership Group and the leadershipgroup.com and Leadership with a Servant's Heart. We'll get links to both of those in the show notes for you guys to get straight there. Highly recommend both. Fantastic resources. Kevin, thanks for being on the show. It's just a privilege and honor having you here today. And for those of you watching and listening, you know your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.